Welcome to Revlog, where Aaron went all out today on the attire.
Well, last week I gave you perfect opportunity to kind of roast me because I wore shorts and, kind of a casual shirt, and you let it go.
We did let it go.
But I just needed to make sure that I came back to being on point with my...
See, Bryan thought we were going all casual.
I thought I was at the beginning. We were at the beginning of a trend.
Yeah, I can't
Very
sustain
short-lived.
that. Yeah, I can't sustain that.
Trend. Yeah, okay.
You saw my entire lineup there. That was it.
And now
I like it.
It's seersucker.
It is time for the seersucker. So I need to get me seersucker. I don't have any seersucker.
And maybe a boater's hat.
I actually have one
Would be
of
nice.
those.
Do you?
Yes, my grandfather's.
Is that right?
Yes.
That's amazing.
Pretty cool.
A cane, and you'll be ready for the vaudeville show.
Do you have any seersucker, Bryan?
I do not. I used to have some seersucker pants.
Okay.
years and years ago, but no.
Not anymore.
No, not anymore.
Well, I don't know.
He saw that trend, Orville and Bryan, they kind of brought that trend up, and he's just watching the rest of us. Yes.
Riding
Matlock,
coattails.
Orville, and...
Were you contemporaries with Matlock?
What's that?
Were you contemporaries with Matlock?
That's
According
cool.
to Aaron.
That's cool.
According to Aaron, he's my brother. Yeah.
Anyway, we've got to get to the text. So we're starting Judges chapter 7 today. I see you drinking your coffee like a normal person.
Yeah. I'm surprised Bryan didn't. He was ashamed how he laps his coffee.
I have no coffee today. Yeah. Coffee lappers.
There are times when I drink water when I'm out that I think about this text.
Really?
Yeah, I do. Like when you're out playing sports or something, or you're out doing something where you're drinking at odd times and odd places, how to do it. Or like when you don't have a cup, right, essentially.
Lapping water. You think of, you don't lap water, but you think of this.
Yeah, I think
you don't
about
actually.
this text. I don't think I would ever lap. In none of those situations where I didn't have a cup, I don't think I ever...
I've just seen the slow motion dog's tongue.
Oh, yeah,
videos,
that's incredible videos.
That is pretty cool. What I do is I just stick my head under the Gatorade thing and just press the button.
See, that wasn't an option.
No,
Yeah.
I don't know that I've ever...
Do you think they dumped that Gatorade over Gideon's head after the...
That's next
after
week.
the triumph?
That's
next week. Oh, okay.
Oh, wait, Bryan's preaching this
That's right.
text.
That's right. So maybe he'll give us an example of...
I'm on vacation. Now, should someone dump Gatorade over Bryan after the sermon? That's where I'm going here.
Many people have wanted to dump a whole lot of things on me in years past. But
with all of that said, let's get into the text. So Judges 7, 1 through 11. Now, Bryan's preaching. We're going to let Aaron get first strike here.
Well, I need to recuse myself, I think.
Because that's weak. That's so weak.
So what stuck out to you as you read this text?
A couple things. First of... how much does fear play into Gideon's story? I mean,
it keeps coming up, doesn't it?
It just keeps coming up. And even now, the Lord even says, well, if any people are afraid, he gives them an out.
Right. That's sort of the first marker there, right?
Yeah. But and beyond that, I think as Americans and particularly as Texans, this story is kind of anti how we just go about things. Bigger is better, more is more. We want to come with the strength and the ferocity of all that we have and show our strength. And God's saying, that's not how we're going to do this.
Yeah.
Big armies and big hair.
There you go.
I like. There's a slogan. There's a T-shirt or a bumper sticker.
There was a time during COVID when I had a pompadour.
Yes, you did.
Yes, I remember that.
Those memories pop up on Facebook, and you're like, whoa.
That's right. That's right. And God gives a clear reason here why that's problematic, that you will think this is in your strength.
And it's so much of God's economy, and that's kind of how I phrase these kinds of things. God's economy, God's way of doing things is not how we would do it.
Right.
And God's really clearing the deck to make sure we don't want anybody looking back on this going, oh, it's because we overwhelmed them with force, we overwhelmed them with size, and it's we're gonna choose 300 water lappers, and and these are the guys that are gonna change the story here.
Yeah, amen. So, Bryan, you've been preparing for your sermon, I hope.
Have I?
So, as you come to this text with probably a little bit more depth and study behind it, what sticks out to you? Where does your heart go as you read this?
This was a huge task for Gideon. He had to build and shape an army. Now, we can say, well, God did that, but God was working together with Gideon. He would say Gideon was remaining sensitive to what God was prompting him to do. But Gideon was tasked with getting this done.
Well, it's kind of in Aaron's language, Gideon is preparing an army in God's economy. Right? And so
that's exactly right.
Doing it that way is completely different than as you would think of preparing an army otherwise.
That's exactly right. But there is still work to do. And
right.
So what does that look like within God's economy?
Yeah.
What are going to be the obstacles that I'm going to run into? Am I going to run into resistance from all the advisors and all the armchair quarterbacks and so forth? And how am I going to face that? How am I going to lead these soldiers so that they take me seriously? And so he says, well, we've got the force. Well, no, wait a minute, we don't have it yet, and we're going to be on maneuvers and go down to this large body of water. And so there's always, the point here is that there's always something for us to do.
Yes.
There's always a task for us to be about. And part of being led by God is to accept your role in that.
Right.
And to accept the responsibilities that come with that. Right. In fact, it's really no easier in the sense that in the definition of easy that we often desire. Yeah. Well, I just went out there and it was already done, and I just didn't have anything to do for the rest of the day. That was not Gideon's story. Gideon's story was there were probably some sleepless nights there. There were probably some strategies, talking out strategies and with trusted people, in the tents. And he had to carry out these things. There was much, much work for him to do. And he was dealing with people that are not always the
That's
easiest.
right. And I'm sure this was far more difficult than it comes across in 2 paragraphs, right? One of the things as we look back on this, we don't sense the gravity and what it probably took to get this done. And to your point, telling 20,000 people to go home or whatever, as people are looking at Gideon saying, how are you preparing the army this way? It sounds like you're doing the exact opposite of what you need to do.
That's exactly
And I'm sure
right.
there probably was pushback and even doubting of himself as he came back and forth with the Lord. And this was probably a much more difficult task than the way it comes across as you read through it.
I think that's right. We have to place things in real time if we're going to ground them in reality.
I think that's. I love how you guys have framed that, because we need to fill in some of the narrative. I mean, just naturally,
Sure.
We just didn't have 20,000 people show up. It was, there had to be a gathering together, and God gave Gideon the assignment, and he said, okay, well, let me go out and get an army.
Yeah,
so he goes out and gets an army, and then thinking.
And then God says that's not it, right?
Okay, let me reframe that a bit. But it's this conversation.
But logistically, I mean, think about getting word out, in those days, and then finally, gathering these people, like you said. I mean, that's
and they all show up, and Gideon's like, well, we got too many people, right? Now we got
actually
go home. Yeah. All of you go back home. We don't need any of you. So, Aaron, as you read, what question?
Well, it goes to that. idea that often we get an assignment from God and then we say, okay, God, I'll take it from here.
Right.
And that's kind of that first phase of what we see in this talking. Again, we're filling a narrative here, but still, we know that God gave him an assignment with the Midianites, and then an army shows up. So there is some time where Gideon does that. Am I willing to go back to God saying, is this what you had in mind? Am I doing
That's good.
Am I doing right? Or am I just going to go, got it, and just take on my own initiative? But with knowing that God often, always does things apart from Aaron's agenda, am I willing to go back and say, how am I doing?
Yeah, and I think you're right on there, Aaron. I think sometimes we forget when God calls us to do something that He calls us to do it in a specific way, right? You can do something good in a poor way or with bad motives, and seeking that out and going back to the Lord and saying, Is this the way you called me to do this thing?
With as much back and forth as Gideon had with God,
Yeah, that's good.
Right.
It's certain to know that narrative needs to continue,
Yeah.
the dialogue.
Yeah. So, Bryan, what question came to mind?
Feel
for
free
you?
to use this in your sermon. Yeah, I know. It's
Well,
gold.
I'm going to be reviewing these tapes, Aaron, and
To quote Aaron Hufty, or excuse me, Lord Dr. Reverend Aaron Hufty.
the great Aaron Lord Hufty once said, this was hard for Gideon. This was just extremely hard. First of all, how come life is hard? And I know around this table we could come up with 1,000 answers to that. Life is hard, or we could say life is hard because of sin, or life is hard because of this or that. But I just want to put that out there. Sometimes I ask the question, why is this so hard? And secondly, am I up for the difficulty? What's it going to take for me to get ready for the difficulty that it's going to take to do good things and stand before God and say, I've done the best I could do.
That's one of the things I've struggled with too, where I've just, in my head and in my weakness of faith, sometimes I imagine good and holy things are easy. But
Wow.
good and holy things can be, but rarely are they easy.
I have to say, in our Sunday school class, we talked about this very thing yesterday, and the teacher was saying that the people had forsaken God, but it didn't happen overnight. It happened
Right,
over a
exactly.
period of generations, and just to we look at that and we say, well, if you just turn back to God, it'd be all right. Why don't you do that? And we tend to look at it that way. These people can't see that if they would just turn back to God, everything would be okay. But what you just said puts the lie to that, because it's not, high and holy things are not easy. It's not easy to do the turning, because you have to untangle yourself. And that's what we talked about in the Sunday school class yesterday. Untangling yourself from all the
That's
alliances
fantastic,
and
yeah.
the dalliances that you've had is painful.
Yeah.
Tell you what, Bryan, why don't you just replay this video? And I really think that's gonna be.
People of the congregation,
Yeah.
you'll just watch the side screens.
Yeah. Don't even worry about preaching. Don't even worry about preaching.
I'm here to help.
Thank you. Thank you. Will you be there? Are you there
Yes.
that day? Okay.
Yes.
All right. I know Chris is not there. Otherwise, this is a moot
I'm
point.
Here for you, Bryan.
we would love to hear your thoughts on this text if you would comment below.